Hey, good morning, guys. Sorry about the if it's fuzzy or whatever. I was just trying to set my phone up in the cottage. We're at Westgate Resorts for the weekend, and I'm gonna be doing a couple videos. With the next couple days, just to kind of bring in the new year for myself and for my family and for my friends. And there was a couple topics that have just been hitting me while I've been away. And one of them was recognizing and understanding that we are blessed, that we do have significance and favor, and sometimes the hardest thing for us to recognize is the seed that has been planted in our life and the responsibility that we have to produce, to create a harvest, to be profitable, to be progressive, And so I was thinking about all those things, and I think the biggest distraction, trick, or just disaster of 2019 was for us to not recognize our own ability, our own strength. The power that we do have. And, the last video I did was about, being grateful to the bone. And a lot of that is just, understanding what we have. It is impossible to multiply and produce and progress in any area if you don't recognize what you already have. And I think that's the greatest trick that we're under, that we think we're less than we are. We think that we're something that we're not. When we are, it's almost like we're afraid of our own strength. And so because we don't recognize, you ever run to some people will call it a good run, and you're doing well and things are happening, things are popping, and you start to get scared because you're like, man, things are too good. You ever hear people say that? Things are too good, and I'm afraid of what's going to happen next. I'm afraid of the blessings. I'm afraid of the rainbow. I'm so used to being in the storm that I don't recognize this season of the harvest, the season of reaping. We've been sowing. Some of us don't even realize that we've been sowing, because we're so focused on our sorrow that we don't recognize the seeds that we've been planting in not just our life, but in the lives of other people, because they're watching our example. They're watching what's Will going to do next. How's Will going to handle this? Not only how am I going to handle the storm, but what is my responsibility during the harvest when it is rainbows? It's almost like in our society we're ashamed to claim and testify about the blessing, unless you're in church. I remember, I think did a video a long time ago about, I was talking to my father, and I was telling him that I was doing really well right now, and I don't even, I don't, and I'm not going to put a time frame on it anymore. I'm doing really well. Okay. Because when we put a time frame on it, it's like we're forecasting that this is temporary and that my permanent state is supposed to be in pain. Let me say that again. Be careful of what you say about your status, because if you're in a status of success, don't put a time frame on it, because you're basically saying that you shouldn't be profitable and that this is a fluke, and you start to resonate with that prophecy, and you will search or seek out self-destruction, because you haven't adapted or become attuned to being blessed. And we're all blessed. We're blessed right now. Let me ask you this question. What if You're really blessed right now. But because you're so used to the struggle, the storm, the suffering, the stress, that you don't see it. And because you don't see it, you can't experience it, and you can't truly harvest the reward. You know, because my status of being successful, wait for it, my status and your status for being successful right now is permanent. Let that sink in for a minute. It's permanent. And I know some of us, it'll make us nervous, because, we're attuned to suffering. We're attuned to failure. We're more attuned to losing than winning, that it is uncomfortable to be blessed. And that's a problem. That's a problem. So this year coming, I want us to change our mindset to now, I'm not saying we're not going to run into struggles, but I'm saying that your status should be, if we had a status on Facebook, it shouldn't just be single, married, or in a relationship. It should be successful, working on it, in the progress, or failing, So I imagine how many people, if we had different statuses like stressed and struggling or successful and working it, how many of us would put on successful and working it? And once you get to that, my whole job half the time is getting people to recognize their own strength. And once you recognize your strength, once you recognize you are blessed, once you see the seed that you're supposed to sow, you got a responsibility after that. And your responsibility is to adjust to this being the new normal and being an example. So many of us are so used to the struggle that when we do run into that season of success, we get greedy and self-absorbed, and we start trying to gather all this stuff up because we're afraid that it's not going to be here tomorrow. It almost reminds me of the Israelites, and I don't know if all y'all know the story, but there was a moment when the Israelites were hungry, and Moses had talked to God, and he sent manna from heaven, and he said the manna was for them to eat for the day. Gather what you need for the day. Don't try to take for tomorrow. But of course, we hard-headed. And so many people, many families gathered extra because they're afraid there wouldn't be any food for tomorrow. And when they gathered extra, when they turned around the next day, the manna was full of maggots and worms. And so some of us are doing that now because we're afraid that that status of successful is temporary. And so you're becoming top heavy, you're becoming fat and obese with what you were only supposed to gather for today, because you're gorging on you're gorging on all the success you have now because you're afraid that it's not going to be there tomorrow, and it's making you too fat and too slow and too self-absorbed to be effective and functional to maintain what you've gained. And so one of the responsibilities of this time, this season of you being favored, is to adjust and continue to grow. And one tiny seed can produce a great tree, and in that tree will produce many seeds, which can produce a forest. So here's the question. Here's the last question. Is your seed just for you, or is your seed to produce a forest? And that's what I want you guys to take into next year, 2020. Okay? Love you guys. I'm going to talk to you later. And this is the day, man. This is the last Sunday. So, let's enjoy this, and let's bring in the new year right. Okay? Talk to you later. Love you guys. Peace.